All right, Woody, thank you. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk joins us. Boy, we got a lot of Buffalo Bills news, including a disaster of a press conference with a head coach and a general manager discussing who's responsible for Keon Coleman and the pick, and then all the sound that made it sound. And Brandon Beane comes out later and says it was my pick, not the coach's pick. It was just awkward, Mike. The whole thing was just a disaster.
The whole thing was awesome for our business, but horrible for the Buffalo Bills. It was way too long, and they missed the mark. I think they went in there believing that we are going to address all concerns about this stunning decision to fire Coach Sean McDermott and not just keep GM Brandon Beane, but promote him. And I don't know where the PR guy was. Derek Boyko, I got a lot of respect for him. He's been there for years. He was with the Eagles before that. And competent PR people will know when to say, time for two more, and wrap it up and get everybody off the stage.
Right.
That thing just kept going and going. It makes me think Terry Pagula made it known to everyone, we're staying until every question's answered. And I credit the reporters that cover the Bills for asking all the right questions, serving their duty as liaison of the fans, getting the answers of the fans, the questions the fans would ask. So, yeah, I thought it was really bad. And, you know, I do have to say this. I love Mike McDaniel. When I saw that they're going to interview him, between his propensity to talk and talk and talk and talk and their propensity to talk and talk and talk and talk, they're supposed to do that interview today. It may not be over until Monday.
Oh, you sound like you've interviewed Mike McDaniel and you realize it's 3 questions and, well, that'll do it.
I'm telling you, I love Mike McDaniel, but whenever we've interviewed him, I know that we only need 2 questions.
Right. No, that's what you get. There's no question. By the way, that's an awkward one to think that he could be the head coach for the Buffalo Bills. Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I don't know that you fire Sean McDermott without knowing who you're going to replace him with, and that violates the spirit, if not the letter, of the Rooney Rule, which advocates a very open, deliberate, inclusive process, and you're not supposed to have your sights set conclusively on the next coach. But, you know, the names that came up right away, Joe Brady, which is kind of awkward because he was the offensive coordinator for the guy who wasn't good enough to stay. Brian Daboll, who was the offensive coordinator, who was good enough to parlay that position working with Josh Allen into being the Giants head coach. And then Davis Webb, who was a backup for the Bills and is close friends with Josh Allen. Those were the 3 that came up. So anybody else is, hey, you know, they are casting a wide net. Maybe they don't know who they were going to hire. But the whole thing is so weird. The idea that Terry Pagula, as he tells the story, and I'm going to take him at his word for something this kooky, that he had given no thought to firing Sean McDermott until after they lost to the Broncos. And simply by walking into the locker room and seeing Josh Allen crying and feeling the vibe, he knew that he had to fire his coach. I mean, I've never heard anything like that before.
No.
And I don't know that it's the truth. That's just whatever version they cooked up to sell whatever they're trying to sell. But, man, they should have done a better job cooking up a story because that's not an objectively believable story.
All right, so let's get to part 3 that is affiliated with the Buffalo Bills. I know it's been a few days now, but it was a weird call, and I caught myself going, wait a second, man. Josh Allen to Brandon Cooks ruled a pick, or was it a catch? And there's been a lot of talk, and it was just they were up on the ball before I knew it, and we were running on to the next play like it definitely was an interception. Mike, does the league have to take a look at this in the offseason? It just looked like a bad call.
Well, and there's 2 different aspects to it. One is the way that the play was handled, because there's an element of transparency that needs to come through in moments like that. You need to know when to stop the game, take the time, make sure that the right people are watching the replays. And Walt Anderson, who serves as the NFL's in-house officiating spokesperson, mentioned on NFL Network Sunday that there's a team of replay officials that look at every play. I got a text from a GM saying, why is this the first time I'm hearing about a team of replay officials that look at every play? So nobody knows, and I've heard this concern ever since Dean Blandino left. Who's reviewing these calls? Who's making these decisions? Is it one person? Is it multiple people? Who's in the room? Who's hovering over their shoulders while they're trying to make these decisions? There should be one person and one person only. We should know who it is, and that's the person who should answer to the media when decisions like this are made. And as it relates to the Cooks play, it didn't even get to that person because they made the decision via expedited review performed by God knows who, that they weren't going to do a full-blown review. And the other problem, Joe, it relates to the consistency of the application of the rule. There's nothing wrong with the catch rule. And there's two aspects: what you have to do to complete a catch while you're on both feet in the field of play, and what you have to do to complete a catch when you're going to the ground.
Right.
Brandon Cooks was going to the ground. And as written, if you're going to the ground and you hit the ground and the ball comes out, you've lost possession of it. So as written, that's the accurate application. The problem is on December 7th, Aaron Rodgers caught a batted ball behind the line of scrimmage, and he was going to the ground, hit the ground, lost possession. The Ravens came up with it. It was ruled an interception on the field and overturned to a catch by replay review. And the reasoning from Mark Butterworth, the VP of Instant Replay, if you apply those words to Brandon Cooks, he caught the ball. Yeah. So the core of this issue, Joe, the thing they have to decide moving forward, if you're going to the ground while being contacted by the defender, are you down when you hit the ground, even if the ball pops out, or do you still have to maintain possession, allowing the defender to intercept the ball if the ball comes free? That's the thing they have to decide. What's it going to be? And in doing that, they're going to have to admit that they got one of those wrong. Yeah. They either got the Aaron Rodgers call wrong or they got the Cooks call wrong.
Well, we know one thing. The one cost the Buffalo Bills potentially the game. There's no question about that.
And it got Sean McDermott fired.
Yeah, got the guy. That's right. That's right. He still be playing, getting ready for this game with a really good chance to win. So yes, there's no question. Hey, so let's move on to this Duke lawsuit, which might be affiliated to University of Miami down here. Darian Mensah, the Duke quarterback, we've seen a couple of these. We saw one in Washington as well. He had a great year. He's a hell of a quarterback, and he goes into the portal late with a contract already in place with Duke. What's going to happen legally, this thing? They're allowing him to be in the portal right now. Mike, does he end up staying at Duke, or are they going to let him out?
Well, there's three steps when it relates to a case like this. The first, you try to get a temporary restraining order to allow you to do the thing you want to do. So he got the TRO to allow him to enter the portal, or the TRO, I got it wrong. I'm mixing up my cases because there's another case where a TRO was ordered involving a basketball player. Duke wanted a TRO to prevent him from entering the portal. That was rejected. The next step is what's called a preliminary injunction to keep him from transferring while the lawsuit is pending. The contract has an arbitration clause that basically says any dispute, you have to go to a private arbitrator, you don't go to court. But they're running the court to try to keep him from transferring. And this is just an example of the chaos that you get when all of the antitrust violations that are baked into the NCAA's rules come crashing down and the schools don't know what to do. And this is where we are. And, Joe, I'm surprised Miami hasn't been sued yet. And I won't be surprised if Miami is sued. Now, they got sued by Wisconsin a year or so ago under a situation like this for tortious interference with a contract relationship. It's awkward to do it to a conference partner if Duke does that to Miami. But that's really the heart of this, right? Mensa was going to stay until somebody shows up with a bigger bag of cash. So now he's going to go. And Duke is exercising its prerogative to try to hold him in place. At some point, Duke has to ask itself, do we want to go after the entity that tried to lure this guy away?
Yeah, that's going to be a crazy one. Speaking of college, Mendoza looks like he's been looking like it basically all year. Is he the first overall pick in this draft?
I think he will be either by the team that holds it or the team to whom it's traded to. If the Raiders, who had the big show of Tom Brady's there, Mark Davis is there, John Spytek is there, and yeah, they want to check out Fernando Mendoza. They also want everyone to think that they're all in for Fernando Mendoza to drive up the value of that pick if they trade it. So I think he'll be the number one overall pick. The question is who ultimately puts in the card, and do the Raiders trade out of that spot? I've been kicking around this possibility of the Raiders trading the number 1 pick to the Ravens as part of a package that sends them Lamar Jackson. Well, then the Ravens would have that pick. Would they use it or would they trade it to someone else? But I think some way, somehow, someone's going to make Mendoza the top pick. He's the best in this year's class, and that's the reality. You don't have to be a Hall of Famer. You don't have to be a Pro Bowler. All you have to be is the best in this group that's coming out, and you're likely to be the first pick in the draft, and it feels like that's where Mendoza's headed.
Mike, the Miami Dolphins now have a GM and head coach in place, both from the Green Bay Packers, John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley. Any thoughts, what you've heard about the Green Bay way coming down to South Florida?
Well, I mean, they should be able to put together a team that can play when it's cold, right? They know a thing or two about that. But,
yes.
It took them a while to get there. Look at most of these current vacancies. They're looking for a coach, but they kept the GM. And in some places, they get rid of the GM and they keep the coach. Initially, the GM was gone. The coach was staying. Mike McDaniel made it through the season. And it felt like Stephen Ross was trying to come up with a way to keep Mike McDaniel. And apparently he realized this isn't going to work because whoever I hire is going to want to have his own coach. So why do I want to tie John Eric Sullivan's hands with a coach that he wouldn't have hired and that he wouldn't want to work with? General managers scout everyone. They scout players. They scout coaches. They know who they want to work with. And John Eric Sullivan knew that Jeff Hafley is the guy he wanted to work with. So I give Stephen Ross credit. The old saying is wisdom often never shows up at all. We shouldn't reject it simply because it came late. To realize that McDaniel needed to go too and they need to do a clean sweep, that's something that puts you on the path to being a properly functioning football operation. We talked about the Bills because the Bills did a half measure, and they've created this mess for themselves by firing McDermott and promoting Brandon Beane in one fell swoop. It's better off, if you've got a problem with your team, it's better off to hit the reset button, bring in a new GM and a new head coach, and let these guys work together and see what they can do. And, it either works or it doesn't, but it
was time for change, Mike. It was time for change.
They continue to spin their wheels in the mud. So let's try a new set of tires and see if it works.
Yeah, no question. Hey, Mike, as always, man, really appreciate you coming on. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll find out if old Mr. Stidham can hold the Denver Broncos at home and get them to a Super Bowl.
All right, buddy. Good talking to you.
All right, Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk.